Well, overnight, one of Kim Jong-un's top officials seen heading to the United States as talks between White House officials and North Korean negotiators are expected to continue through today. So, as the final preparations are being put on the high-stakes summit, how does China factor into these talks? Joining me now is national security and military analyst Dr. Rebecca Grant, who we always appreciate having here on Fox and Friends First. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So this is very interesting when you look at the relationship between China, South Korea, and North Korea. So I would begin, I suppose, with the China element in all of this and how they would benefit. Let's start there.
Well, China can benefit from decreasing tensions. For a long time, Heather, North Korea was China's buffer state. But now that China has become a global military power, their relationship with North Korea can shift. So anything that provides better economic development opportunities, business opportunities for China, and could maybe over time lead to fewer U.S. military forces in the Pacific, that's all good for China.
And China is North Korea's main trade partner, but with the sanctions that are in place, I understand that North Korea's exports to China are in fact down 35% since the Trump administration imposed these sanctions.
That's correct, and China has been a full partner supporting tough UN sanctions. Bottom line, China has not given North Korea economic prosperity, and that's what gives Kim Jong-un that choice to denuclearize and bring in Western private investment and better economic development. Also, China doesn't need this reckless rogue state with nuclear weapons. They need a solution in North Korea just as much as everyone else does.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to transition into next, is what would be a bad result for China in all of this.
China's worst nightmare is a collapse of the North Korean regime because China has a long border with North Korea. The last thing Xi Jinping wants is a bunch of North Korean refugees and a crisis going on inside North Korea. So that would be the nightmare, and anything that will transition to a more stable position for North Korea is good for China.
And also, North Korea and South Korea unifying would not be good for China, because then that could possibly put more influence from the United States in the region, and they certainly don't want that.
Yeah, and it becomes a delicate matter. So we see Kim Jong-un raising the issue of security guarantees. We don't know what that will look like, but that security solution will have to be acceptable to China as well. China was very upset when South Korea deployed their full missile defenses. So there's definitely a rearrangement of the military balance going on, and China will have to be comfortable with the end result going forward.
Well, here's what the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman had to say on the Singapore summit. They said, we think that a person-to-person encounter and dialogue between the leaders of North Korea and the U.S. is the key to solving problems. But then at the same time, President Trump, amongst some others, has accused China of being the factor that derailed negotiations and derailed the summit this past weekend.
Well, the fact remains that China is the single most influential country governing what North Korea can do. We've seen the meetings go on. China's been very, very quiet about what they've said. And Heather, bottom line is we really do need China's full cooperation at this really delicate time. The Singapore meeting is in China's interest, and I wouldn't be surprised later on to see another summit, a possible Korean peace agreement, and to see China participating in that.
It's very interesting when you look at the other things going on around the negotiations with the Singapore summit. You have increased aggression in the South China Sea by China, and then you have the trade negotiations going on right now with China. So it definitely all factors in. Dr. Rebecca Grant, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, the